On to the Ohio State. Ryan Day. Man, does he have some very good coordinators under him this season. If you're an Ohio State fan, you have to be very excited about the coordinators. In comes Chip Kelly as the OC. That man said, I am done trying to be a head coach in today's game. I just want to draw plays and run a cool offense. And he's going to have an opportunity to do that here. Jim Knowles is back at DC. Over under sitting around 10.5, depending on where you're at. Maybe a little bit higher, maybe a little bit lower. Always make sure you're line shopping. Will Howard comes in over from Kansas State. Julian Sayin and Aaron Noland are kind of in the waiting wings. A lot's been made about Will Howard. I made the point, Ohio State fans got on me at it, that the arm talent is not necessarily an improvement over Kyle Cord. I still believe that. I still think I'm right there, but the improvements in the run game, like he adds an extra dynamic to a running back grouping that may be the best running back grouping we have seen in a very long time in college football with Trey Henderson and Quinshon Junkins. And then you have Will Howard, who adds an extra man advantage, a downhill force to be reckoned with. Still a good arm. Like, I'm not sitting here saying it's bad arm, but his arm talent is very similar to Kyle McCord's. I think that is just objectively true, whether you like it or not, Ohio State fans. But we'll see. But the running game dynamic here is going to be fantastic. And Will Howard with Chip Kelly as his OC should be very interesting. And how Ryan Day and Chip Kelly work will be an interesting one. Ryan Day is giving every appearance that the pressure is sort of getting to him, though, in some pretty big ways. Like, there was talks of Caleb Down playing running back, and it's, why the hell would you do that? You have a fantastic running back room. Caleb Downs is one of the best football players in the country and going to be an absolute rock star in your defense. Don't put him in offense. You don't need him. You don't need to increase the risk portfolio for him. You're fine. Like, the cracks do start to be showing for Ryan Day, and I think he knows it. This is a very pressure-filled season. They're all in. Like, the boosters all in. They provided the money. This is a very expensive roster. They've poured the money into it. There's talent on this roster. Can they reach that national championship window? Well, we're going to see, because there could be some concerns here. At tight end, who's stepping up to replace Stover? I thought Stover was one of the more impressive tight ends in the country last year. I thought he was very integral into the Ohio State success from an offensive standpoint. The more they utilized him, I thought the more successful they were going to be, and that seemed to be pretty true. Wide receiver room, like, sure, you're replacing guys like Marvin Harrison Jr., but that room is just chalk with talent. It's incredible what Ohio State does at this point in the wide receiver room. So I think you have zero concerns there. It's the offensive line. They have 4 starters back on O-line. There has to be, their floor is high, but there has to be this push to be a top-tier elite offensive line this year. You can't get bullied when you're in the red zone. You can't have these kind of lapses, mental lapses, in your blocking scheme coverages at various times, which they have had. Like, they've got to step up this season, because everything else around this offense is good. If that offensive line, it's a high floor. Once again, Ohio State fans, I do not want you coming at me thinking I'm trashing your offensive line. It is a very good offensive line. Okay. The question is, can they be a top 5 offensive line? That's the question. It's going to be very interesting to watch, like, what this team develops into, because the schedule too, like, we look at this schedule, obviously everybody knows the Oregon game. That is going to be a battle of heavyweights. Awesome, awesome football game. But you've got Akron to start off the season, Western Michigan, Marshall, like, then Michigan State, and then you play Iowa. It's Iowa, Oregon back to back, because you have Iowa at home and then you got to go play Oregon. Those are 2 very tough back-to-back games. We're going to know a lot about the offensive line. One, how they handle the Iowa game, heading into that Oregon game. And then you got the Nebraska game and Penn State right after that. Defensive lines, right there is your danger zone, Ohio State. What kind of football team are you in the trenches? That's going to be the tough spot of the schedule. Defensively, I think I would not have had a concern about this defense. I wanted to come in here and just rave about Jim Knowles, like I do every season, because I think he is an absolute phenomenal defensive coordinator. When he was at Oklahoma State, I raved about him. When Ryan Day got him to come to Ohio State, I said on this podcast, immediately the toughness profile of the defense is going to rise. And we have seen that. Like before Jim Knowles, there were real questions about how tough the mindset was of the Ohio State defense. They were getting bullied and looked soft at the point of contact against the physical teams like the Michigans of the world. And Jim Knowles has risen that profile. Like this is a tough as nails defense. This is a defense that you're really excited about. The concern, though, is as I was doing my previews, there's a lot of talk about Jim Knowles and Day meeting a lot and how they're going to approach defense this season. This is what I'm talking about, where it seems like the pressure is getting to Day. Why do you have your hands in this defense? It has done nothing but go up since he's taken over this program. This defense has a chance to be the best defense in Ryan Day's time at Ohio State this season. There is a talent profile here that is incredibly good. And Jim Knowles is an incredible defensive coordinator. Let him cook. Get out of the kitchen. Let him shop for the groceries. Let him cook the meal. Do not interfere here with how aggressive or not aggressive he's going to be. I understand head coaches have to have some say in this, but the talk that there is even discussions happening at this point as you get to the season about what the defense is going to look like this year is pretty incredible. Because you have guys like Jack Sawyers, who's developed really nicely. JT's a good player on the defensive line. Just has to get home a little bit more on pressures. I think he's going to do that this season. Williams is back inside with Ty Hilton. Like the inside of that line is going to be really nice. It's just like which one of these guys can be the home wrecker this season, the game wrecker, like really have an impact. Somebody will show up in that room, I think. It's just which one's going to do it. Jim Knowles will figure it out. Him and his staff on the defensive side of the football does a really good job. Like you have some concerns on both the offensive line and defensive line of just how high is their ceiling. Their floor is incredibly high. Just can they pop into that kind of top tier, good on good level type of football in the trenches? At linebacker, Sonny Styles is coming down from safety. I think that makes a lot of sense for his play. Cody Simmons is going to probably be the alpha in this room, or Simon, really good player. CJ Hicks is really nice. The secondary, I mean, I said it, Caleb Downs might be the best football player in the country. Like he's an absolute freak of nature. I mean, freshman starter on that Alabama defense, impact player, just a freak. He's an absolute freak. Denzel Burke is back and Davidson's back, both incredibly solid in coverage. You have Hancock is back at nickel. Like this secondary is really good. This is what I'm talking about. Like if the defensive line can have a guy or two that can be a true blue game wrecker in the trenches, because they're going to be really solid inside. Can somebody on the edge get off? Can you continue to get consistency inside? And Ryan Day doesn't mess with this defense. You have a really good football team this year, Ohio State. It's just it's that incremental margin to pop up into that next level, to break through. That's what we have to see this season. But we're going to see it when they play Oregon early in the season, and then how they develop after that game based on what happens in that game. And that's where we're going next, to Eugene, Oregon, where Dan Lanning has an open checkbook because Phil Knight turned 80.